Did you end up going to Melbourne Hack, Leo?
No, I didn't.
I wonder how that was. Like, I
Yeah,
haven't been going to.
I don't know. Oh, you said you were going to do the hackathon or something, right?
Yeah, I didn't end up doing it. I was quite busy, so. But I don't want to do. Maybe after the AGM, I'll have more time, or even early next year, like some last few hackathons of the uni.
Yeah.
Is I gonna do anything this sem for hackathons?
Honestly, don't really feel like it though. I don't know.
Fair enough. They used to do Catalyst, right, in second sem?
Yeah, I'm not sure about Catalyst anymore. I don't think it's gonna happen.
Did you do Code Brew this year? Yeah, right.
No, I can't. I know the topic.
You didn't? No. You did you do the Code Brew this year?
No, I can't.
Oh, okay. No, I'm saying like, oh, yeah, fair enough. It makes more sense.
Hello, everyone. We'll start probably 10 minutes past 1, so that we can give people time to join.
I'm curious, are you gonna pair people up who just joins this event, or like
No,
who has filled up a form?
This is separate from the program. It's just an intro session.
Fair enough. Hey, Kyla.
Hello.
I heard Leo's gonna tell us how to get into trading. Am I in the right workshop? He told us how to do the final thing of IMC.
Not quite, but this will help them.
Are you jumping ship, Kyla?
Jumping? No. Why do you have your Atlassian background on, huh, Kai? When you attend a shoot, are you like, hey guys, by the way, I go to Atlassian?
No, I just use my this laptop for everything. Like it's the most expensive machine I've ever owned, which is not my money. So I want to milk every second out of it.
Bro, we're recording. Sending this to HR right now. Izzy Iglesias, send.
Leo, cancel this. So yeah, I just basically use this for my personal use as well, which I know I shouldn't, but yeah, I just use it for everything.
What did you get for the Atlassian like stipend? Like
for?
Like I heard they give you like a budget to like spend.
Yes.
Like what did you buy?
I bought my entire setup.
Oh, that's so good.
I bought like a monitor. I bought like
Nice.
a keyboard, mouse, lamp, mouse mat. So yeah, everything.
What do you need a mouse mat for, Kai?
You know, the smooth texture and like my hands feel nice. So very nice.
Do you
rub
the mouse
Plus
mat?
I had some. Plus I had some money just lying around. I needed to spend.
Yeah.
So like,
I want to get like an iPad Pro. Do you think they'd let me?
No, that's not part of the thing, because they're giving you the laptop, right? They don't pay. They'll give you a list of things you can buy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's not everything and anything,
Oh,
but the list is quite broad. You can buy, I don't know, monitors, like the stuff I mentioned, anything related to headset, like headphones, earphones, any cables, lighting, those kind of stuff. So, I mean, that
I'm gonna use my
elevates your
iPad
work
as a light.
nicely.
I need it.
Wait, Kyla, are you an intern or grad?
Intern, because I'm doing a
Oh.
cheeky math diploma.
Oh, damn. Okay. So you only get to keep the laptop for your internship, right? If I'm not wrong.
Yeah, yeah. We don't get to like. I don't think they'll give you like a MacBook Pro.
Unless you stay part-time and then you work alongside your diploma. Just something to think about.
Mr. HR over here.
I guess 5 more minutes and we begin. Is that correct, Leo?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if more people are joining though, because I can see the same number of people. It's quite stagnated. So I guess, do you want to wait or?
Turn my camera off. Don't want to be recorded.
Let's see. We could
Maybe just
start.
promote more. I don't know if you. I'm sorry if I interrupted in mid your promotion session or something.
Promotion. Me?
I don't know. Like, aren't you? Fair enough.
I think it's safe to start since we're gonna go through introduction stuff anyway in the beginning. So.
Cool. I hand it over to you.
Cool. Welcome everyone. Hopefully, you're hyped up for technical interviews next year if you're applying for prior intern roles. So yeah, welcome to the first workshop for LeetCode, first and only workshop for LeetCode Buddy program. And this is going to give you overview of what to do as an interviewer and interviewee when you're paired with your coding buddies. So if you haven't done that, let me just copy the link actually.
Yeah.
For the Google Forms, and I'll paste it in the Zoom chat. So if you haven't signed up, do sign up, and we'll pair you up by this weekend. So probably Sunday, and we'll contact the two of you and give the emails for your partner. So yeah, hope you're excited for that. And cool. Could you go to the next slide?
Sure.
Just wanted to promote a bit of CISSA events. We have a Rust workshop on the 26th. I don't know much about Rust, but if you're interested in it, do come. We also have a speaker event. Next slide. So talking about startups and stuff on the 2nd of September. Both of these events are on our Facebook page. So if you're interested in them, do click interested or going on our Facebook page, and the Zoom link should be there. Cool. Can begin.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Leo. Welcome everyone. My name is Kaif. For the ones who don't know me, I am a third-year student at the University of Melbourne, majoring in computer science, or whatever that major's formal name is. And yeah, today I'm here to talk to you a lot about your interviews, more specifically software engineering interviews. And over the years, I think since my first year, I've been trying to apply for different places, try to be proactive, and that has gotten me lots of experience, and as well as had successful offers from multiple places as well. So in terms of the whole journey, I've seen quite a bit, and this event is to just share some of that experience. And as a quick overview of what we want to be doing today is, first, I want to share some preparation tips on both long-term and short-term on how to prepare for these interviews. And some of these wouldn't be as new, because these are common tips, but it's still important for people who haven't heard them before. Next up, we're going to be doing some interview techniques. So what are the do's and don'ts during the interview? What are the things you definitely should be doing, and the things you should look out for? And lastly, a live example. Oops, I see a typo there, apologies. So yeah, and just a few heads up about the slide that I definitely the goal is to help you guys out as much as possible. So even during the presentation or at any point, I don't want to be at just one-sided. If you have any questions or any thoughts and opinions, feel free to either stop me and speak out or basically type it in the chat, as well as what I've tried to done here is I've tried to put a little bit of text here and there in the presentation itself. So what I'll do is share with CISSA the presentation I've made, so and share with you all. So if you want to keep it and afterwards check it and read through the slides, you can do it. But during the presentation, you shouldn't worry too much about just reading through the entire slide, because just a heads up that I've put more content there than I usually would. With that being said, let's kick us off.
Also, just to cut in for a bit, this workshop is recorded. So if you want to view this afterwards, we'll probably post this on CISSA Facebook page as well. So don't worry about that.
Sounds good. So before I dive deeper into it, I also wanted to clarify some things with it, because we are actually in software engineering and tech in general, you're going to be faced with lots of different kinds of interviews. The LeetCode ones we are talking about, some of them might be take-home coding challenges. Some of them might be behavioral rounds or system design rounds even. So I wanted to clarify that the presentation and workshop is going to be dedicated towards a specific type of interviews, which you're going to face a lot, which is the LeetCode style problems and a software engineering coding interview, where an interviewer you basically most of the time would have one or more interviewers, and they will give you a technical question. These questions are very similar to LeetCode Easy or LeetCode Medium questions. And basically the point of these questions is to test your data structure and algorithm knowledge. Now, data structure and algorithms might not be the juiciest and sexiest topics out there. I admit it can be a bit dry, but the point of these is to just test your fundamentals, and just to remember it's important to do your projects and everything, but it's also make sure that you consistently take preparation of it. It might vary from person to person. I don't do these problems in general. I just only start doing them 2 to 3 months or even 4 or 5 months before the interview season, which is early next year. The one thing to mention is that these problems will not just be just one single problem. Oftentimes they can have multiple follow-up questions, so be prepared for those. And these are not just testing your coding ability, but also your communication skills. So TLDR, we're going to be not talking about take-home assignments or system design. This is very, very specifically about the coding interviews that we LeetCode style coding interviews, and all the tips are for that. That being said, let's dive into the first part, which is preparing for the interviews themselves. So I think there's a long-term and short-term approach that you can take. The long-term approach is definitely programs such as this, where you pair up with a lot of people and practice, as well as, okay, I actually said it wrong. The pairing up that's something medium to short-term. Long-term approach, I would invest a lot of time first into knowing the content. So be familiar with the basic data structure and algorithms. I know some of you might be first years and just beginning your second year. And from Unimel's perspective, they don't really do a very good job in making you familiar with all the basic data structures and algorithms by the time interviews begin. So it sort of falls onto you as an individual to look into this either through LeetCode, the book Cracking the Coding Interview, YouTube channels to learn this content themselves. The reason I say this is a long-term process because it takes time to absorb these contents. So the earlier you begin, the better you'll be prepared for the interviews. The second thing to remember, and I see a lot of people often fall into that trap, is they get very good at solving very specific type of problems like graph problems or tree-related problems, or even the basic array and dictionaries, and not very familiar with wider algorithms and problems like BFS or DFS and other things. So the goal isn't to become very, very specialized and very, very proficient in only one or two areas, but instead have a general overview of the different areas of fundamentals of your data structure, your arrays, list, strings, and as well as your general algorithms and procedures, sorting, searching, those things. So try to do a wide variety of problem. So start with the easy ones, do easy array, easy list, easy string, easy sorting, and then come back and do medium array, medium string. Do it in iterations. So long story short. The last part, which is practice makes you perfect, and this is the exact thing you'll be doing with your LeetCode buddies. I think if I had to give one single advice, which really, really helped me with my interviews at Atlassian, Google, Microsoft, you name it, that I practice a lot with my friends. I would reach out to people and say that, hey, can you please take an interview of me, and I can take an interview of you, and I would do 1 to 2 every week. And these really got me into the habit of doing those interviews. And I initially struggled a lot with coding and talking at the same time. So it is a hard thing to think and speak and actually do stuff at the same time. So that takes a lot of practice. So please bear in mind and practice as much as you can. Another thing, service I wanted to mention is rooftop slushies. They're a paid service. I haven't personally used it myself, so I cannot say anything myself, but I have heard secondhand experience and apparently they're quite good. But again, this is paid. You probably should already reach out to your friends and do it. And only if you feel like it's inadequate, then you should reach out to these at your own time and space. Cool. So the other things I quickly wanted to mention is some of the resources I've found very useful. I'm not going to dive deeper into them, but here are some, the LeetCode, obviously, apart from that, HackerRank also has it. This book is really good. Obviously, read the first 5 to 6 or 7 chapters. They're going to be super useful. And some YouTube channels I often read and watch. And yeah, I think both Leo and I talk about these quite a bit, especially Clement, our dear old friend. Cool. So next up, interview techniques. So regarding the interview techniques, the first and foremost, I'll obviously cover the angle from an interviewee's side. So what are the things you should be doing as an interviewee? What are the things to be mindful of and all that? And I also have a quick slide about, okay, you're buddying up with someone. What are the things you should be conscious and do to make the most impact and be the most helpful to the other person? Cool. Let's dive deep into it. So these are the top things I think you should be aware of a software engineering interview. The first thing being that it's about the process, not the solution. So it doesn't matter if you had a crappy process, if you didn't speak at all and just produced the code. That's not what these interviews are about. These interviews are a way for your interviewers to get a look into your thought process, your problem solving skills, and your communication skills. So it's completely fine. Don't panic that if you cannot sometimes get the solution. If you were very clear about your thought process, the different things you have mentioned, then it should be all right. So I guess, Leo, someone is asking for the YouTube channels in the chat. Maybe you can type this in. But,
I'm on that.
Yeah, but as we have said, we're going to send the slides as well as the recording afterwards, so you can check them out as well. Cool. Communication is the, okay, cool. Oh, sorry, yeah. Let me actually type something to Leo very soon. Just give me 1 second. Can you please share? 1 second, folks. Just typing something to Leo, which I forgot. Okay, coming back to that, I guess it's a very nice segue to the second point. Communication is the key. And be very, very vocal of and mention almost everything that's going through your head. And one thing I would love you guys to practice more and more is thinking aloud. So when you're doing those LeetCode buddy problems and other things, it's very, very important for you to practice the habit of thinking aloud and being able to take a complex problem and breaking it down into normal words. And other thing, I guess a lot of people is freaked out, and I myself was freaked out. When I go into an interview, oftentimes I am presented with a problem I haven't done before. And no matter how many LeetCode problems you have done, 50, 100, 100, 200, there's a good chance that the problem you will have in the actual interview might not be something you have seen before. So don't panic if that's the case. If you have done your due diligence, if you have taken preparation, then you should be able to structurally think and come to the solution. So the goal of these interviews is not to know the solutions from the back of your mind from the get-go, but to think about it and be allowed in that thinking process and find the solution. So the key takeaway from this is don't panic if you don't know the problem, and don't try to Google it or something during the interview. Just try to think it in a formal way. And yeah, definitely don't get caught trying to Google it as well. The first thing, don't Google it. And if you're Googling it, don't get caught. Then pretty much that's a big no-no. And the last thing, the interviewer isn't your rival or someone. It's not the big bad boss at the end of that game. The interviewer, and every good interviewer should be your companion. They're not there to challenge you or test you, but to understand you. So work with them, understand the hints they're giving, communicate with them, and work through the problem. Cool. Next things is, this is a typical interview flow or structure which I take, and you guys can also try to follow. So first things first, what I do is when the problem is given, I try to clarify. I try to ask questions, understand the problem, and pretty much build the whole picture. And once I have the whole picture, next thing I would try to do is plan. Okay, now that I know the problem, what are the common data structures I know that can help with this? What are the common solutions I know? Oftentimes, I would start with basically the most basic solution, or and basically try to build on top of that. We'll touch on that a bit more afterwards. And once it's I have come up with the pseudocode, I actually do that, and I don't know whether you would want to do it, but I actually in Words very quickly type in my pseudocode. And I don't spend too much time on it, just to be in mind, but I type it down so the interviewer actually can see in Words what I'm trying to do, and it's easier to for them to understand. So that's something you can do. So very, very important is not to jump from this clarify stage to straight into the coding phase, and rather clarify and then plan your algorithm out, share it with your interviewer, get their feedback. Do they think any optimization is possible, or they're happy with it and they want you to code? So basically, then once they're happy and they say, okay, you're fine for it to code, you can then start the code. And once you're done with the coding, and obviously walk through your code as you're coding, and you can have two approaches. One is talk and code, or talk a bit and then code, and talk a bit and code, whatever is comfortable for you. And once you're done, do definitely test with the sample given or some edge cases. So that if that's the structure, what are the other things you should be doing? And I think these things are a bit getting repetitive, but the point here is there are very few things that can really make you stand apart in the interviews. Things like communication or testing, and that's why I'm reiterating it again and again, so you guys are mindful of it. So communication is obviously we have discussed before, but one thing I wanted to mention is make sure you don't have very long pauses. Like long pauses definitely hurt. And if you can't code and talk at the same time, do one after another, or try to practice as much as you possible. Optimize incrementally. What I mean by that is you don't need to come up with the most efficient and optimal solution in the get-go. it's better to have the brute force solution first, the most simplest solution, and then try to optimize it. Because if you from the get-go try to optimize it and fail, what your interviewer might perceive it as, okay, this person cannot even think of the most basic solution and is struggling. But that's not the case, right? So don't assume your interviewer's knowledge. Obviously express the brute force solution. You don't need to code it, but express it. If necessary, just write it down in a few words and then try to optimize it. So your optimization, apologies, should be coming incrementally. Practice good code quality. When you're doing LeetCode by yourself, it doesn't matter what you name your variable as X, Y, or Z, but during the interview, try to have descriptive variable names. Try to make sure you are following the language best practices, as well as don't have multiple conventions mixed up in the same code base. It's something you build with habit. So even when you're doing your LeetCode, I highly recommend the function name you're giving, the variable name you're giving. Try to think of it. Try to think how can you make it concise, yes, yet very descriptive. And I guess while you're doing it in the interview, it also pays to mention it that, okay, I'm using this name or this coding convention because this is what the standard is, or I'm using this name because it is concise. When you're making a decision in the interview, like, okay, I'm using this name because of this, also say it aloud. And the last part is test yourself. Once you have finished the coding, there are chances that your code might have some bugs. And if you can test and find these bugs yourself, that is a big plus. I remember from my Atlassian interviews, one of the feedbacks I got is not only was I able to come up with the solution, but I also identified a couple of mistakes and quickly came up with the solution to that mistakes as well. And they saw it as a big plus point. And it's the same in multiple places. So it's completely acceptable to make mistakes, but it's also on to you to at least try and catch those mistakes. If those were the do's, what are the don'ts? So some of the don'ts is definitely don't rush to code, understand, ask, plan first. Don't have long silences. We have talked about this before. Don't ignore hints. Oftentimes your interviewer will say certain things. Try to think about them. This is a mistake I've done before. I was married to an idea and I would try to do just that idea or that approach. But interviewer, they obviously know the solution, right? They know and they try to work with you, so they can be giving hints here and there. So the things your interviewers are saying can be very valuable. The last thing, don't ignore keywords or don't assume knowledge. What I mean by that is, if you're going to use a certain data structure, a certain algorithm, name it out loud. For example, if you're going to have a breadth first search, say that, okay, I think a breadth first search can be used here. So I'm going to be trying to include or implement a breadth first search. This ability to show that you know that data structure and algorithm is quite important as well. Cool. So before I go into that interviewer tips, is there any questions so far? I know this is like just the things I've mentioned. If yes, feel free to speak up or just give your thoughts in the chat or through voice as well. I'll wait a few seconds. Nope. Cool. If you have anything, please type it in. I'll continue. Whoops. Question too much.
There's a question.
Yeah.
Are there any tips for doing online assessments? So I'm assuming this is like the first round where you don't actually have to speak to the interviewer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like what's the program for you?
The HackerRank assessment.
HackerRank, yes, HackerRank. Yeah. Any tips?
I guess for those tips, just remember that you're not expected to solve every problem, but at least have an attempt. to as many problems as you can get. Usually they have 4 to 5 problems, or like the Google one has two problems in their challenge, and the Atlassian gives like I think 5 questions in the HackerRank. So if it's a HackerRank one, you have the diamonds. You're basically based on the diamonds and all. Another thing to mention in the about the online assessments is most of the time they're not a hard cutoff. So it's not like you need to do 2 questions max minimum, or you need to do 5 questions minimum. So what they do is take your online assessment and take your resume and pair them up together. So this is they're not independent. They pretty much go in together. So even if you don't do very well in the HackerRank, but you have a solid resume, you can still go through. And the other way around. If you don't have a very good resume in the sense that you don't have much experience or lots of personal projects, but if you do quite well in the online assessment, they can pull each other up. So that's something to remember. Another question I got here from Bruce.
Also, just a sec. I want to add a bit to that. Is online assessments where you can truly flex your code quality. So if you can do any sort of commenting and just the variable naming, and then maybe extracting functions or making your code pretty, you can stand out very well, even if it doesn't, pass all the test cases. It shows that you're very aware of how to code to work in a team rather than just to code to solve a problem.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. Very good point, Leo. Moving to the next question, which was, will interviewers stare at your screen when you code? Most cases, yes. They will share an interactive, either interactive platform or a Google Docs, something like that. And they will see you code. So it's not going to be you coding yourself. They're going to be seeing you code, definitely. Yep. Any other questions? Feel free to put it in the chat. I'll give the interview tips, and then I think we have another slide for questions as well. So for the interviewer tips, this is pretty much because some of you would be paired up with another person, and these are some of the ways you can add value to that. And one thing you definitely should be aware of, as in when you do the LeetCode with some other people, is they might have some alternative solutions you do not know. So definitely think about them, those solutions, and see whether that can lead to the solution. And if not, then try to guide to the solution you know. Communicate and collaborate, give them clues, look out for if the candidate is going to a wrong direction, or is the candidate trying to get anything wrong or stuck for a long time. Give them tips. Oftentimes, before you're giving a problem to a candidate, come prepared, like your friend or whoever your partner is, like come prepared, know the solutions so you can give them tips, because it's make the process easier. And regarding feedback, obviously mention what they have done well, and then mention they could do well. So I guess something to realize that by giving them feedback, you're actually benefiting yourself as well, right? Because it's not many times you are on the other side of the table where you get to see another person doing an interview, and seeing another person interview makes you realize as an interviewer, what are the things that really help you? What are the things the candidate does well that you think is good? And what are the things the candidate can do to pretty much help you out more? So basically, by helping out others, you're basically learning what the interviewers look out for. So that's a very good practice. Cool. That is everything. And now, before we move on to the next section, and are there any questions?
There are a few questions in the chat. I think Hernan asked like if some interviews ask about like AWS cloud services, Docker, Git, and stuff. So those are less technical. Like it's not really a coding interview for those. They're just trying to gauge what sort of technologies you work with. And to learn them, personally, I suggest there are good courses on like Coursera and Udemy for that. Also YouTube as well. That's from my end. Any from you, Kai?
I guess there's two sides of this. First is whether these questions will come into the technical interview. So in places like Google and Atlassian, I haven't seen it, But when I interviewed with, I remember my interviews at Facebook or Microsoft, they did ask me some warm-up questions. And some of those warm-up questions were, oh, are you familiar with, let's say, what do you do? I mentioned some things in my role, and they pick up some technologies. You mentioned you work with this technology. What did you do? Or how do you test your solution? And those are the things you can basically mention. And these kind of questions are very, very good and very, very common in the system design interviews. So you should be preparing for them in the system design interviews. Many companies currently have them. I think most of the companies have system design. Only certain places I've interviewed in didn't have that. But yeah, like Leo mentioned, these are some tools that you can watch a very quick video. CISSA does a lot of workshops. I have run some of the workshops before with CISSA on some of these tools. So try to attend those workshops. And I guess these are some techniques, tools you also pick up as you're doing more projects. So when you're doing hackathons or you're doing personal projects, shout out to Hack Melbourne. They do a lot of hackathons as well as CISSA themselves. Like, try to participate in those hackathons and do those hackathons. That'll be amazing. And otherwise, yeah, just your personal projects. That's my answer to that.
Another question is, can we use our own laptop to code?
Yeah, absolutely.
So most of, like nowadays, almost all the interviews are online. So you do have to use your own PC to code. Although if COVID gets better, you might be doing a bit of whiteboarding. GatKit, it's a bit different, but overall it's the same structure. But instead,
I don't think for this cohort, I don't think it should be a thing they should be worried about. I don't see in the foreseeable future companies. I mean, the companies are struggling bringing their employees, let alone candidates. So I don't think it should be in the foreseeable. I know, Leo, you went to IMC's on site, right?
Yeah, I didn't really code there though, so I didn't really use a whiteboard. Yeah.
Yeah, like all the interviews I've done has been strictly online, so you would be using your own, I think. And I think Lei has mentioned that YouTube has some awesome stuff. Yes, yeah, I would say instead of Coursera and Udemy, which are obviously good, I'll check out YouTube first because they're often shorter and free most of the times. Cool beans. Any other questions? This might be the best time to anything practically. Don't worry about looking silly or anything. Any question is a good question. So if you have anything in mind, please feel free to ask us.
We'll be jumping into the demo after the questions. So.
Yeah. Cool. While they're typing questions or thinking of questions, maybe Leo, do you want to talk about the interview demo structure?
Sure. So we're going to do a demo for you guys so that you can see what a mock interview would look like. This is something me and Kai have done countless times. I don't even know how many times we did this together. But yeah. So one different thing from real ones is that I will be pausing quite frequently to like literally point out certain things that I'm doing, just so that everyone is aware that I'm consciously trying to, do some of the points that Kai has mentioned previously. And Kai will also be doing the same, pointing out some mistakes if I'm doing something. And then, this is quite self-explanatory for that. We will be using Google Docs for this. It's not the prettiest, but it is what companies like Google use. So yeah.
Yeah, I think there's another one. Yeah, go ahead, Leo. Sorry.
I just want to mention that some companies give you the questions straight out. So like they have the whole paragraph of questions just pasted into the Google Doc. We're not going to be doing that. We're going to be doing something more incremental. I think that Google
both Google and Atlassian do the same way. Like they tell you the question.
Yeah, so they tell you don't actually see the question. You can see the test input and the test output, but you don't actually see the prompt. So that's what we're going to be doing. Yep, go ahead.
Cool. I think I'll answer this question from Shuang. Apologies if I pronounce your name wrong. Is doing competitive programming helpful in preparation for the Google interviews? On surface value, the surface level, the answer is yes. Competitive programming is the type of questions you're gonna get in Google. But then again, there's also the caveat that to get into the interview stages, you also need to have a holistic approach. So not just competitive programming, you also need to show that you have done some projects, and because real actual software engineering has very limited things to do with the competitive programming. So Google or Google Atlassian, Canva, you name it, they can also look out for your any practical experiences you have, any community involvements like part of different clubs, or if you have been part of the community, or just personal projects you have done as part of any hackathon yourself, or even uni projects if it's really good. So that's that. Leo, do you have anything to add?
Not really question? To that. No, Daniel has a question. What kind of projects, personal or large projects, are good for a resume and for interviews? Personally, I would start with easy ones. Me personally, I started with doing a lot of web development stuff, because the main advantage of doing web development projects is that it's usually very visual, so it's easy to show someone that you've done something.
Yeah.
For example, let's have a counter example. If you're doing backend stuff for projects, it's really kind of hard to showcase the projects other than just words in the resume. But if you created a nice front-end UI, you can actually make your website in your resume and show the interview and give them that wow factor. So I would actually probably suggest starting simple, doing some web dev stuff.
Yeah. Plus one to what Leo said. I think it's not just like they're visual, but in most companies, like if I'm trying to think, most intern roles, which are like the most number of intern roles are in front end and back end development, and same goes for Google. Like in your internship, it's very likely that you'll be just doing some form of web development, whether it's back end or front end. That being said, I think in regards to the project, there's two good advice I would love to give. The first one is these projects often, especially in the beginning stages, don't need to come entirely by yourself. You can just follow a tutorial in Udemy or YouTube and do the projects yourself, because it's very hard to come up with the project and idea and everything, do all by yourself. So it's completely okay to follow someone on Udemy or as a guide and then mention it in your resume. That's fine. The second thing is, I guess, try to have a wide variety of project if possible, because especially at our level as students, we don't want to limit ourselves. Like obviously, if you have some passion, like for example, for me, I'm quite interested in cybersecurity. Most of my stuff is related to that. If you are passionate about data science, you should have more projects regarding that. Web development, DevOps, whatever your niche or your interest is, you should have more work there. But it's also important to not just exclude yourself from general software development or other types of development like app development. So you don't need to do everything, but just try to do two to three different things, or have a basic level understanding of how that's done. That'll help you a lot in terms of getting those roles, as well as trying to find your passion as well. Another question from Bruce. Is it okay to put half-done projects on the resume or LinkedIn? For example, hackathon projects. I have done some, but they're all half-done. Leo, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think it's completely fine for that.
Yeah, I think that's fine as well. There should be a basic level of project done, because the person, what they're not gonna, most cases, gonna be asking to, hey, show me your project, show me proof. It's not like that. But what they might do is during the interviews, especially the system design interviews, they might take your resume and ask you questions from your projects you have done, right? So they might ask you, like, let's say you have made a calendar app. Say something like, what are some challenges you faced during making this calendar app? What are some considerations you did? So if you have made, if you haven't worked enough in that project, you wouldn't be able to apologies, answer those questions properly, and that's going to leave a bad impression. So obviously do it up to a certain level, but it's completely fine to have unpolished or half-done projects.
I think we can start the demo.
Yep. Oh yeah, yeah, thank you so much for listening. If you need to reach out to myself or Leo, feel free to do through LinkedIn. That's the most preferred medium. Otherwise, yeah, if you need any help.
Kai's LinkedIn in Zoom chat. You guys need to add him.
Thanks a lot, Leo. And basically, if you have any questions afterwards or any tips or even referrals and stuff, feel free to reach out. More than happy. And I guess that is it. And what I'll do,
we'll start the demo.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing my screen, and maybe you can start sharing yours.
Cool. Hopefully everyone can see this.
Just give me 1 second. My keyboard isn't working. Feel free to just talk about something in the meantime. Maybe explain why Google Docs.
Why Google Docs? I actually don't know why.
I guess I can take that one. Don't expect to have an IDE or any kind of code support in your interviews. You wouldn't have autocomplete. You wouldn't have anything at all. Some companies have started giving this interactive coding platforms. They are a bit better than Google Docs in the sense that they don't capitalize every beginning of the word, but they're going to have every functionality of the Google Docs. Apart from that, they're not going to give you any coding support. They're not going to give you any like hints or autocomplete or anything or any syntax highlighting as well. Some companies can give syntax highlighting in my experience. Like this year, I think Google's one would highlight certain things like int or array, but they wouldn't highlight anything more than that. So
cool.
Yeah.
You can start. So you ready, Kai?
Yep. So welcome, Leo, to your coding interview today. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. Let's get started.
Awesome. Cool. So today, the problem I want you to tackle is given an list of integers or array of integers. You need to find an array which contains the product of all elements except that number in that specific index. And again, just to clarify, you need to return a list of numbers where each number is the product of all the numbers except what that number was in the initial array. Does that make sense?
Okay. Could you give me the sample input and output so I can better visualize?
Sure. So for example, if you're given an input 1, 2, 3, 4, which is an array of integers, you need to pretty much output 24, 12, 8, 6, where 24 is the first index 1. So all the numbers multiplied except 1, so 2, 3, 4, and then 12. So all the numbers multiplied except 2, 8, all the numbers multiplied except 3, 6, all the numbers multiplied, and so on. And yes, This is a very common question, and this is a very popular interview question. I can just see in the chat.
Yep. So let me just pause for a bit. So try to focus on not the question and how I solve it, but more of what I'm doing on the side. Yeah. Let's continue. So yes. So can the input, so the numbers inside the array, can they be like floats or anything, or are they only integers?
Yes, they're only integers.
Okay. Could one of these values be like a 0, for example?
They can be any integers, negative, positive, 0.
Okay. So I'm just going to talk about my first solution that I can think of. So essentially, these are all numbers that are products except for the number at that index. So what I mean by that is, so 24 is just the rest of the numbers multiplied, and 12 is the rest of the number other than 2 that's multiplied. So what I can do is have a product. So let me just have a product variable, and I can multiply all these numbers together. So in this case, it's going to be 1 times 2 times 3 times 4, which is 24. And then I'll create a new array, let's say output. And at each index, I'll just divide 24 by the number itself. So 24 divided by 1 is 24, 12 divided by 2, 24 divided by 2 is 12, 24 divided by 3 is 8, and yeah. So this is going to be O of n space complexity because we have an output that's also another array. And the time complexity would also be O of n because it's O of n to multiply all the numbers in the array. So n is the length of the array. So we just have to loop through it once, and then to form the array, it's also O of n. Does that sound like a good
solution? Yeah, that is a good starting point. However, I would like you to think more and come up with a way, if possible. Can you think of doing this solution without using division and keeping the time complexity same?
Sure. Also, I would like to also mention that it wouldn't work with zeros because there would be a division by 0 issue somewhere. So yes, I'll probably move on to another one as well. So let me just take a few seconds to think about how I would like to approach this. So right off the bat, if I'm not going to use the division, I can think of a very simple solution without regards to time complexity. So what I could do is just loop through the array n amount of times. So that would mean that for the first number, I would loop through the rest of the array, multiply them together, and just put them there. It's very simple, right? So it's 2 times 3 times 4, 24, 12, 8, 6, and so on, right? So at 2, I would multiply 1, 3, and 4 together, and so on. So it's going to be O of n squared in that case, because you have to loop through this single array n amount of times. So
okay, we'll
so does that sound like yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we'll pause here for a bit and I'll mention a few things. So from here, this point on, up until this point, a few things. So to mention, like if you remember when that problem was given to Leo, he asked for the input and output. So your interviewer should be giving you an input and output. And if they don't give it, ask for the input and output. It's very important to remember for that. He clarified the input and output for different sort of edge cases, like whether it would be 0 or not, as well as when I prompted him for the follow-up question, he actually came with the most basic solution first, and then thinking of any optimization. Cool. So wanted to mention all the.
Okay, so right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to ask for it. So let's say I'm stuck at this question, right? Okay, so let's continue. So so yeah, does this sound like a good approach to start with?
Yeah, this is like I guess towards the right way, but the time complexity is still O of n squared. Can you think of a way where you can reduce that?
So one of the main observations that I've noticed is that at each index, we're just essentially trying to get the left side, like the numbers to the left and the numbers to the right. So I'm thinking whether I should go ahead with this approach to solve this issue.
I think you mentioned something very important here that, and what I can say is, well, if you think of what a product is each index is the product of all the numbers except that number, right? And what does that mean? At each index, the product is basically all the numbers on the left, the product of all the numbers on the left side and the products of all the numbers on the right side combined together. So can you think of anything that can replicate that?
Cool. So let me just break this down. So let's say I just wanted to form an array of numbers that represent the product of numbers to the left only. So in this case, let's say 1. So there's nothing to the left of 1. So what I'm thinking is, since it's a product, anything multiplied by 1 is going to be that one. So it should be 1 by default, not 0. So I'm just going to put 1 here, because 1 times anything is 1, the number. Yeah. So in the case for, so let me just put a pointer so that it's easier to visualize where I'm at. So at index 1, to the left, there's only 1. So I'll also put 1 here. And also at the third index this time, I want the product of everything to the left. Right? So I'm just going to multiply everything. It's going to be 2. And at the last index, it's going to be 6. So how do I use this? Okay, let me actually do the same thing for the right, and I'll see if I can come up with something. So this time I want to start from 4, so there's nothing to the right of 4, so it's going to be 1 here. And then here, there's only 4 to the left, so it's going to be 4. And then 12, and then 24.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Can you see a way to?
Yep, I can see a way to get the output. So I'll just, once I have these two arrays, I can just multiply numbers at the same index together and produce this output array, and it should give me the answer. Because at a single point, we're essentially multiplying everything from the left and everything from the right, which essentially means the rest of the array. So cool. Let me just pause for a second. So Kai mentioned something really important, is that he highlighted something I said as important. So as an interviewee, what I'm thinking at that moment is, oh, I said something that's very close or on the right track to the solution. And so once he says that, I'll be focused on that certain concept that I just said, that he said was important, and try to figure out the solution from that point. Anything to add, Kai?
Yeah, I guess sometimes the interviewers might not directly say, yes, you're on the right track, but they might reiterate your approach or just say about something else. So just try to think what the interviewer is trying to say, and just think in general. And what Leo is doing really well is at each point explaining his thought processes out loud. That's how you should be talking as well. And he's also explaining very visually with the pointers and the bottom of each array and all that, using the examples in the document. So this is how you should be doing as well.
So,
not just
so back to the interview. Okay. So I'm just going to write out a bit of pseudocode for my approach for this problem. So I'm first going to essentially create an array of products to the left, and then create an array of products to the right, and then multiply two arrays together. I feel like this is quite a simple modular approach to go about this. So yeah, do you think this is a good approach, and should I get started with code?
Yeah, I'm happy with what you have so far. You can proceed to coding.
Cool. So okay, a pause for a bit. So something that's good to do in an interview is to make sure the interviewer is on the same page as you. So it should be like a two-way conversation. Right? It's not just you talking the whole time. You should make sure that the interviewer understands what you're doing, and yeah. Okay, back to the code. So is Python fine with you? by any chance?
Yep.
Cool. So first of all, I'm just going to create a function. I'm just going to name this array products except subs. That sounds good. And then this is obviously going to take in an array. I just want to call that array. Cool. So first things first, I want to create a left array and a right array. So I'm using snake case because this icon convention. And let me see how I should do this. So what I actually want to do is I want to initialize all the values to 1. So what I mean by that is I want to start with ones, because anything multiplied by 1 is fine, right? So it depends on the length of the array. So I would just want to initialize, start everything with 1, and so I can just multiply onto it when I click later. So what I'm going to do is 1 for underscore and range n. Actually, let's initialize n to be the length of array. And then I'll do the exact same thing for the right array. Cool. And now I'm going to loop through the array from left to right and get the left product. So to do that, I think I need a variable called left product, which I'll initialize to 1 by default. And then for index in range n, what do I want to do? So I want to multiply. So let me just put a pointer here. I want to multiply this by left product straight away, like the left product so far, right? What I'm going to do is update this with left array index times equals left product. So this should update the elements here. It shouldn't change in this case, but it should multiply left product. So it's going to still be 1 here. And then I'm going to update left product to include the current element. So let me just get the element, which is array index. And then I'll multiply left product with the element. So after this iteration, element array ID is 1 here, right? And then so left product doesn't change, and then we go into the next loop, which is here. So in this case, left array is still going to be 1, still 1 because, and then element this time is 2. Let me just grab that here. So the element this time is 2. So left product right now is going to be 2. Let me just have a left product variable here so we can keep track of what it is. So left product is now 2, and then we increment it to the third index. And this time, we want to update the left array by multiplying with left product, which is 2. So it's 1 times 2, 2 here. And then we want to grab the element, which is 3, and multiply it to left product, which will be 6. And then we enter our last iteration, which is 6. And then we just multiply it with 1. And cool, that looks like a correct implementation. And I'll do the same thing for the right array. So I'm just going to copy this code and name a few things. So right product also starts with 1. We're going to multiply it with right product. And this will be updated with right product. And this time we kind of want to be looping from right to left. So what I'm going to do is reverse this range here. And yeah, so let me just have another array of ones just to visualize, and then a right product variable as well. One. So starting with here, right product is 1. We update it, and then we update the variable here in the right array. Okay, I need to rename this right array. And then we update right product, which is 4. So this time we update 4. Cool. And then we move to the next variable. We update it by multiplying right product, which will turn into 4. And then we update right product, which is 3. 4 times 3 is 12. Move to the next iteration. Times it again, 12. And then move on to the last one. Wait, actually, I skipped a step. I need to update right product to 24, and then I move to the left one and then update the last one. Cool.
Yeah.
And then for the final step, okay. So now that I think of it, what I could have done is I could have not have the right array, and just do the exact operation onto the left array. Do you want me to do that? It saves a bit of space, but shouldn't change the time complexity.
No, it's fine. I guess like I see what you mean, that you don't need 2 arrays and you can just use the same array, but that is fine. Like you can just, for the sake of this this problem, you can proceed as it is.
Cool. So I'm just gonna move forward to combining two. So combining should be quite straightforward. So let me just have a final array here. And what I'm going to do is loop through both arrays at the same time. So left, right, and zip. Let's zip left prod, right prod here. Probably move to another page. And then I'll just add to the final array with the pen the product of the two. So in this case, I'll just loop through. I'll multiply 1 and 24, 1 and 12, 2 and 4, 6 and 1, and add it to array. And then finally the return final array. Cool. Let me just go through the code again to make sure there's bugless. I get n. I initialize ones for length of n, and then left product. I have a left product. I'll multiply it to. So index should start at 0 and end at n. So start at 0, and you multiply it with 1, starting. I already went through the example kind of when I was talking about it, so I will do it again. But it should look correct. Do you want me to go through another example? So.
Yeah, go through another example, and I think you should test your code.
Yeah. Let me just, let's say input was 5, 8, 7. Let's try a 0 to test in a negative number. Let's see if it works. I don't know what the output is yet. Let's use. Could you give me the output for this? Or actually, I'll just calculate it myself. Never mind. So yeah, so length of array is also 4. So we'll initialize.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yep. So left array, and just left array. We start off with ones. And same thing for the right array. Start off with ones. And then for the left array, we'll start with left product, which is 1. And then we update this first index with 1. Cool. Shouldn't change. And then we update left prod by multiplying with element, which is 5. Left prod is now 5. We move on to the next element. We multiply with 5. And then we multiply this left product with -8 minus 40. And then multiply this with minus 40. And then we multiply minus 40 with 7, which is minus 280.
Yeah.
And then I multiply minus 280 with the last element. Cool. And then we do another for the right prod. I think I found a. This should be a array. Yes. Cool. And then here, right prod is 1. Okay, so right prod is 1. So we start here. Doesn't change anything, and then we will multiply right prod with 0. And then the next element is going to be 0. And you can't really update 0, because if you multiply anything, it's going to be 0. So it's going to be like this. And then once I combine the two arrays, final array should be 0, 0, 0, minus 280.
Yeah.
Is that the correct output?
Yep, it is.
Cool.
It is correct. Cool. Yeah, great job. Well done. I think.
Yeah,
are you done? Or
I just want to talk about time complexity again. So
yes.
This is constant. This is O of n. This is O of n. This is also O of n. This part is also O of n on loop, and this part is also O of n. So overall time complexity, O of n, space complexity. We're also creating arrays of length n like 3 times. So it's also O of n.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, great job. I think overall, I'll just give some feedback. Overall, this has been I think, deliberate demonstration of a positive interview. So just reiterating some of the things Leo did well since the beginning is first he clarified the input output, then basically asked clarifying questions. It's very important. We gave a brute force solution. We discussed the optimization. He picked up the hints and came up with an optimized solution, wrote an pseudocode before proceeding forward, mentioned time complexity. And during code, he was quite verbal, which is like the point. And I think you can talk in code like Leo did, or let's say Leo's code was in 3 parts, right? So you can mention that, okay, this is what you're going to do, and then code it up, you're going to do, and then code it up and again. And I see a question from Daniel. What do you do if you don't exactly understand the hints given by the interviewer? I guess you can ask them, you can just mention it that, hey, I don't understand what you're trying to see. Could you clarify a bit further? That's, again, you should do it if you need to do it, but most of the times the interviewer would try to clarify. And even if you don't get the hint in the first go, try to think about it. At least show that you have think about it first, then before you ask. Leo, do you have anything to add?
This problem is a bit simple. So, so one thing I would like for everyone to also do is maybe keep track of your variables outside the function.
Yeah.
It makes it easier for the interviewer to follow along what you're doing. Maybe for this example, I went into a bit depth because when it comes to testing, I'm essentially reiterating again. But there will be different cases where you'll have to test your code. And like even for this example, like I misnamed my 2 variables here, which I only found out after I went through the code again through testing. So make sure to test your code at the end and also mention your time complexities. That's very important.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very, very good point. Just bear in mind that also mention to your interviewer that, hey, I want to test my code. because oftentimes the interviewer either might have a follow-up question and you're shortage of time, and they might ask, okay, can you answer the question instead? So just clarify with your interviewer, but yeah, you definitely should test it out, and ideally testing it out with an input and output which is not the interviewer gave. So if you can test for edge cases, that's the perfect. And also mention edge cases throughout your interview. That's very important as well. Another thing I wanted to highlight is the function names, variable names. These are the type of variable names and function names. So descriptive, yes, yet concise, you should be using. So definitely not X or Y in certain cases. And some things like N is understandable because we are trying to make it concise. So those are acceptable, but anything, make it descriptive, but don't make it too descriptive. If how about I and J for loops? That is fine.
IJ is fine.
Loops is
IJ
completely
is fine.
fine. Yeah. Inside loops, it's fine, but it's just the actual name of the variables and the function. You shouldn't make any shortcuts.
Yep.
Cool.
If you're working with, for example, grids, though, I would actually suggest using row column instead of IJ.
Yeah, yeah.
It is probably more descriptive. Yep.
Is there anything else?
Any questions?
No, I guess. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for the interview, Kai.
Yeah, it should be. I think Prasanna and mentioned it should be something like this. Could pick up, just multiply them each other.
Okay. So what did I type?
You typed accidentally typed like a comma.
Oh, okay.
Oh, good. A good pickup, Prasanna. No, Prasansa. My bad. And I think Hernan, space of tabs doesn't matter. This is not Silicon Valley where you'd have a breakup with space and tabs. Cool. Thanks everyone. I think we're wrapping it up as well. Thanks a lot for coming and all the best for your interviews.
If you guys sign up to the program, I'll make sure to send you an email regarding your partner either Sunday or Monday. So yeah, look forward to having a coding journey together with your partner.
Thanks everyone. Bye.
Thanks everyone. Bye.
Are we staying back, Leo, or wrapping it up?